This podcast is on a mission to end the orphan crisis. You're listening to Family is the Answer, powered by Podcast Network Asia. We share resources and stories to equip families who plan to adopt and foster, empower advocates who fight for vulnerable mothers and children, and invite communities to impact generations. I'm Chrina Henson, the Executive Director for Generations Home, a nonprofit organization and licensed child placement agency based in the Philippines. Learn more about our work through our website, generationshome.org. Now, let's jump in to this week's topic.
Good day, everyone, and we are back. This is Family is the Answer podcast in partnership with our parenting podcast.
Our parenthood.
Our parenthood, sorry. Our parenthood podcast, which is led by Miss Thammie and her husband, Greg.
Yeah.
And so today I'm again with these wonderful moms, with Miss Chrina and Miss Thammie. And it's been such a joy being with you. So today, we're going to be talking about how we journey through attaching with our children. Mm-hmm. And I guess we have different stories, right? And we'll start off with you, Miss Thammie.
With me?
Yes.
What's
because I have
question?
more questions for her.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So just for a review, right? You got your daughter. How old was she? Because, I got my children, they were teens. So the process of attaching to them is different. Right? And you got your daughter. How
I
old
got her
was she?
twice.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So we celebrate
celebrate
two gotcha days.
2 gotcha days.
Yeah. So newborn, we got her as when she was a newborn, and then we released her after a year, and then we got her back. When we released her, I didn't know we were going to get her back, but we got her back a year after that. So that's when she turned 2. Mm-hmm. So it feels like I welcomed 2 different girls. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 different babies. Mm-hmm. So different ways to build attachment here as a newborn, and then
different
with all that she went through.
A 2-year-old.
When she was, by the time she was just 2, but a lot more work. A lot more work to that we had to do. Yeah.
So how were the 2 welcoming different? Because I'm just thinking, you said that the first time you got her, she was a newborn, and to many prospective adoptive parents or foster parents, majority of them want to have babies, to welcome babies, because they feel it's easier, less trauma. So how was it different, or was there a difference?
I'm not sure if there's enough to say that there's that big of a difference. Uh-huh. I think it's really just more of the stages of development. That's why there is a difference. But in terms of, maybe the level of trauma, maybe that too would make a difference. But I think we would be similar in our experience when it comes to when we took her in as a newborn. It's really more, I was thinking, okay, she did not hear the sound of my voice while she was in the womb. Yeah. So I'm a stranger to her. So it's really more, I wanted to go through baby wearing and just go back to skin, and just I initially tried to breastfeed, and then I was about to, because my body knows how to produce the milk. Yeah. And then my husband said, "Are you sure?" And then when the milk volume arrives, you'd have to say goodbye to her. You want to go through that? And then you'd have to be like, okay, not to that level. So I got milk from other moms. So again, back to community, the power of community. So for a whole year, I never had to buy formula. Wow. It was breast milk from several different moms who gave milk for her. And so, but it was really more, I think it was more just being more intentional of really making sure that her senses, she feels my warmth, she hears my voice. So I have a song, which interestingly, when I sing to her now, calms her down. I'm not sure if she remembers that that's the
Right.
song that I sang to her, but so it was a lot of that, like just more bombarding, if I may use that term, her senses for her to feel and recognize me as her mom. It was more that, the initial work that I had to do. And then the when she arrived at 2 years old, it was more, she really went through a lot. And I think we'd be talking a lot about what she went through along the way with different topics. But it was a lot of like I said, it was like she was a different person. When she left us, she was already speaking, and I would boast how she's my earliest talker among all my children. And then when she arrived, she could not speak. She was nonverbal, flat affect, no emotions, like glazed eyes. And she was just like, she was with us but not with us. She was not there. Like,
It was really hard to see. I mean,
yeah, and you saw her.
I saw her, and like the visible, the trauma was visible, and I think that's something really difficult to see on a baby. She was 2 years old, and you would have thought that it was a short time, but unfortunately, you could tell she had been through a lot, and it was like, I think you guys had to start from scratch, like. She didn't
from a negative.
Not
from zero,
from a
from
negative. But I do want to say, and if it's okay to share, that like I remember when she came, I was there when you guys were reunited, and it was like she was a little bit. She knew everybody. I mean, because you guys have other kids, right? So, like, you couldn't tell if she knew them or not.
I'm
or
not
if she
sure
was
how much she
how much she could
remembered,
remember. But when she saw Pastor Dennis. I just remember because I had been with her for several hours at that time. She saw, and she was like on high alert, no affect, but like alert. If she wasn't crying, she was on high alert. And she saw him, and like after trying to kind of, get her into the house, and try to figure out how to kind of just keep her calm and like relax her. When she saw him, she clung to him. She like really wrapped her arms around him, rested her head on his shoulder, and she fell asleep. Like it was like an almost instant, she felt safe. And, I was so emotional going home that night because I saw how the importance of felt safety, like that whole time she was safe. She was perfectly fine. She was in a safe environment. But when she saw her dad, she felt safe. And she just safe enough to go to sleep, which I think was a big thing for a baby. So
There was rest.
There was rest, and so that told me there was something in her that maybe remembered,
Yeah.
or that that the attachment wasn't lost.
Not totally erased. from
Yes.
her. Yeah.
And
Maybe from her conscious memory, it wasn't there, but
inside
her body knew. She
yeah.
knew, her spirit knew, her heart knew that, she was with her safe people.
yeah,
Yeah, and it was, I think, it took a lot of work in the sense that like most of it, like she associated touch with something that was negative. So a light touch would trigger a stress response, and she would freeze and just freeze until meltdown. And it would be, she would have every morning, every afternoon, every night, middle of the night. So it's like 2 hours at a time of just crying, and even physically, she was like, we had to go to the doctor a lot, get her treated from like her skin, parasites, everything, like physically, emotionally. So it was really like a reset, and it was starting from just getting her, and it wasn't really just basic needs, but again, what you mentioned, that felt safety. Like, how can we help her feel safe? Okay, let's get her healthy. And even the nonverbal, like we were thinking, is it lack of stimulation? Is it trauma? Is it lack of play? Because we had her assessed, and her play level was like infant, like less than 3 years old, her social play level. So it was it lack of stimulation? Was it trauma? Was it maybe malnutrition? So we worked on all those practical areas along with the just the emotional,
A lot of empowering.
the love. Yeah, a lot of that. We didn't know that time, that term
Yeah.
at that time, but yeah, a lot of that. Like, how can we make her know, like her body, her mind, her heart know that she's safe, and just so a lot of that working on the attachment again, and building that base.
What's the age difference between her and your youngest son?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years, yes.
So when she came back, she was 2 and he was 7.
Yes.
So I'm sure that you had to spend more time with her. I'm just curious. Was there any issue about your youngest son being jealous because mommy's spending more time with this baby girl?
And that's an interesting question, because there was a time that she would be. So at first it was with Dennis that she attached with, because she really had I think an issue with maternal figures.
Yeah.
So that's a
Which
lot
is not
maybe
uncommon for children who've
Yes.
been fostered or adopted.
So I understood that. Like, I did not take it personally. So I think that's one thing to note when we start working on the attachment. Do not take it personally when it feels like they're rejecting your efforts and you're rejecting the love that you're trying to pour into them, because they're like, I'm already doing this for you and you're rejecting it. It wasn't personal. It was just, that's where she came from. That's the trauma that she had. So I worked on her attachment with me, right? And so it was really round the clock. So it was, we had to end all other activities. Like, it was 24/7, just being with, the being with her part. And then later on, she attached with me finally. And now I'm her primary attachment figure. She did not want anyone else. And anybody else who shared my affection for her was a threat. So because the older kids were like, they were safe for her. Like, she didn't feel as if they were competition, because they were
So
big
much
enough
older.
to also
Yeah.
give the care.
Yes.
So my youngest at that time was needed as much almost the same level of care that she
Right.
did,
Yes.
in a sense, especially emotional care, and that, in that sense. So with him, she felt threatened, as like she would really push herself away from me while crying every time he came near. It's as if she was rejecting, or she was like, I wasn't rejecting her, but she was doing it for me. Like, okay, I'll reject myself. Like something like that. Like, she would physically move away. And so I had to explain to him how, for her, she doesn't know what it feels like to have a mom who she can share the love with, that she feels like she has to. So I had to go through like all the explanation with him. And then I remember one time when she finally went to my older son and left me. And then my youngest said, Mom, she's learning to attach to Ahya, which means older brother in Chinese. Like, she's learning to attach to Ahya so I can be with you. Aww. And then we would sneak in those little moments. And I made it into a game. Like, oh, she's not looking. Come on, it's our turn. So it was like, because I knew it was real for him too. Like, why can't can I not have that time with you just because she's here? So, and he's not that expressive, but there was this one time wherein we were both like cuddling, and he said, Mom, I'm so happy she's back with us, but I'm also so sad because I miss you and just staying with you. And that was so real. And he started crying. And I started crying too. I'm like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. And then again, back to that, having to explain. But of course, even if I explain it, there's that sadness, that missing me component. He missed his mom. Because all my attention was intentional, like deliberately poured into this little girl. And even if I explained it, he knew it. So he was happy in his mind. He was happy and he knew that it was the right thing. But at the same time, the fact remained that he missed me. He missed just having me to himself any time of the day. And so it was also a reminder for me that, yes, the children that come to us from hard places do need a lot from us. But let's not forget that our biological
Yeah.
kids also need a lot from us, especially when they're going through that transition as well. Because it's not just me
just our journey,
and
yeah.
her that's going going through the transition. They're going through that transition as much as we are. So that was really a reminder for me to be as intentional in different ways with my other kids. So yeah, so we made it into a game and we made it into a challenge. Like, oh, what if you also show that you are like how, because we really saw how she was with the other older kids. She was okay. She didn't really mind because they were caregivers as well.
Yeah.
So I gave him a role of being a caregiver in his own way, like a little man way.
That's a nice way.
So when he was able to have that responsibility, he shifted from being like, I also need you, like a needy baby, to, okay, I can give as much care. And then that changed the dynamic between them. She started seeing him also as someone who can give care, not as a threat who will take away the care that I can potentially give her.
Right.
So that happened. that happened. So yes,
I didn't know that.
It's interesting that you brought that up because I wasn't able to. Yeah, that was a season that he also navigated pretty well. I must say so.
And I like that you said that, no, that our kids from hard places need a lot from us, but we have to also be mindful that our biological kids are on a similar journey, and we also can't neglect them or overlook that they need support too in processing the adoption or the fostering situation of their sibling. And we hear that a lot in the space, right? That sometimes we have conversations with the adoptee or the child who we're fostering, but we don't ever have conversations with the biological kids, and they miss out on, really being able to journey fully with us as a family. Yeah.
I think that's one of the advantages I have because, having 6 kids and then a grandson. So those, even before the 2 boys came, it's hard to balance the time amongst the 7, right? And then I have a child who is physically in need of more attention because of his health issues. And so they saw that. So they understand, the other kids understand that sometimes this child needs more time from me because of the needs that he has at that time. So when the 2 boys came, it wasn't as hard anymore for them to understand that because, amongst themselves, it's already an issue that we've tried to resolve. And so it wasn't as difficult for them. But also, I think that's why I also advocate for older children adoption and foster care, because having fostered and then eventually adopted teenagers, it was easier for me to sit down with them and then have mature talk with them. And like with the 2 of you, you took in your daughters; they were still infants, so it's hard to explain to a 2-year-old, to a 1-year-old. But with the 2 boys, I was able to speak to them, ask them questions, age-appropriate questions. So, I could ask them, what are your thoughts? And even, I'm glad you said that, that we really have to be mindful with our biological children. And that's one thing that I still am trying to be more intentional. We've been talking about attachment, and that I'm avoidant, dismissive, right? So I'm afraid that I don't want to be like that to my children. So I try to be more intentional, and I ask them like even simple things during the day, like how was your day? How do you feel? And then I remember specifically, we were supposed to foster a 12-year-old boy. And I don't think I shared this with you. We had him for Christmas break. So he stayed with us for 2 weeks. And then after that, there was no formal fostering yet. But after those 2 weeks, I had to ask, so, with fostering, you have to ask your children who are 10 years older if they have to have a, what do you call that? They have
Write
to
a letter.
sign.
Yeah.
Sort of like something like that. They have to agree.
Agree, yeah.
Since they understand already how it works. And so I had to ask my children, and I had to ask them one at a time, not as a group, because I wanted them to, be free enough to share their personal thoughts with me. And surprisingly, all of them said that, and before the conversation started, I would ask them, I would tell them, I would say, anak or son, it's okay if you feel that this is not for us, this is not the right thing to do at this moment. And all of them said, Mom, we don't think that we are the right family for him. Because that child was really wanting, just he was getting lost in the crowd. He was saying, there's too many of us here. I have too many brothers. Can I just have my own room? And it was not going to be possible. So I had to talk to the social worker, and I said, I don't think we're the family for him. He needs to be in a family where he's either the only child or maybe just one more child, because he needs the attention that we cannot give. So how did I get to that? I was saying that being mindful about what your biological children think and what their needs are, and but by the grace of God, we're able to balance these things, and so yeah.
I wanted to ask you about how you had conversations with your boys, and how you had to process kind of their adoption with them. What was that journey like? Because I guess it's different. We more often than not talk about it with younger kids, and I thankfully had a clean slate, right? From they asked me, when did you know she was adopted? The moment I touched her, I told her, like I've been telling her since day one. But for you guys, you went through that journey of like fostering and then adopting them and welcoming them into your family, and that adjustment, like building attachment with them, and having to do that with an older, like a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. How did you navigate that season?
I think for them, so every child is a different story, right? And with the two boys, when we took them home with just the word foster in mind, right? But for us, it was going to be adoption, because but even with them being fostered, I think to them, because they had been living in the institution for 8-9 years, to them, they have lost hope of being reunited with their families. So whoever was going to take them in, to them, it was permanent. And there was no looking for my family, my biological family. But in our journey, though, we had to. So even when we talk about processing things with their biological family, to them it was different, because sadly when we found their family, it wasn't a positive experience for them. In a way, I think for us it was a little bit easier because since they did not grow up with, they had very, very little memory, especially with Ernie. He doesn't have any memory with his biological family. So it was easier for them to be more comfortable with our family. But at the same time, it was harder for them to process the rejection, because it took us years. When we were processing the adoption, it took us years for the papers to be signed, but the family was not also willing to take them back in. So I, even up to this day, with Ernie being gone, and with Charlie having to accept the reality of his history, it's still difficult for him, especially when he lost Ernie, because to him it was more like, how come this family, who we are not blood related, can love us the way they do, but we were rejected by our own families. So it's still a continuing process for Charlie. I do not force the issue of forgiveness on him. But I just always tell him, I think that's one important thing, when it comes to knowing your identity in Christ. Even with our recent podcast, when we were talking about how we manage what other people will think, we just really have to concentrate, even with our own biological children, your identity in Christ. So whatever else people say or how they treat you takes secondary place, because what's important is how you see yourself in the eyes of God.
And I really like that, actually, because, I've asked you about this before, because the journey with the biological family, unfortunately, of Ernie and Charlie was it was rocky and painful. And I think so often we wish we could spare our kids the grief of their history. And but it's part of their story.
It is.
And so I remember when you shared that with me, you said, I don't force them to forgive. You're kind of being patient as they journey through that. Because I see that even with my daughter, with Chloe, she's at that age where she is understanding more. So I think in the early years, 2, 3, 4 years old, the concept of a biological mom is there, right? But the meaning of that, or the role, or what they lost, is not. The concept of what they lost is not there, because you're here, you're my mom, right? And you're fulfilling the need of the mom. So they don't realize what they lost. But I think that as they get a little bit older, what I'm learning is that they're starting to experience and understand what they lost or what they don't have, and starting to compare and see. And then as you journey even further along, that journey of grieving what they lost continues. And I'm just finding that one of the things that I've been talking to the Lord about recently is just how I wish, I always say, but I wish I could just grieve for you or do the work for her, right? How I wish I could take all the pain, process it out with the Lord, and spare you. But I'm seeing how it's part of their story. And we need to trust that our children, just as the Lord is with us in our journey, that He'll be there with our children as they journey through that brokenness and through the pain and the grief and the loss of it all. But I'm finding that it's helpful for me as a mom to grieve it first. I think that what's helpful is I'm watching her, and I've grieved it so much over the last few years. What she's lost, just simply losing a biological parent, is a loss that none of us know, right? And, to be rejected, or to have the person who's supposed to love you and nurture you and protect you not be there. But I find that it's been helpful, because as I'm grieving, it's almost like I can recognize the signs or journey with her as she's going through it. And it doesn't alarm me anymore. I'm not as emotional. By the time she's getting there, my hope is that I would have processed that with God myself as her mom. Not that I would ever fully understand, right? But that, I wouldn't be so lost as she navigates through that, or so shocked.
Yeah, I think that's so important. What you said, sometimes in trying to, how we wish, right, that they don't have to go through it, right? But you can't take it away. They have to go through the process themselves. And sometimes, as parents, how we wish that we could just remove the pain, how we wish they don't have to go through it. And sometimes, when it comes to the discussions about their biological family, especially, with my kids, you cannot answer for the parents, because you don't know what the parents were thinking when they did that. At the same time, you cannot cover up for them, because the children will know eventually. And if they find out that you tried to cover up just because you're trying to protect them, the more they're going to get hurt. And I just hold on to that verse that in the Bible where it says in John that, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and the healing will come in knowing the truth, even if it hurts.
Yes.
That's so good.
And I think that's why we're always like, when families ask us, how much do we share? When do we share? And I said, yes. I mean, there are answers to that, but just make sure you tell the truth, right? Like when, the how, obviously we could give advice, but the most important thing is that you tell the truth. Please don't lie to them.
Right.
Because trust has already been broken.
Right.
And it's so difficult to rebuild in the life of a child who's been hurt that deeply. Please don't do it again. But yeah, it's that journey that they have to walk on, to walk through.
And I know with you, it's exactly what you're going through right
I'm there now.
Right.
I'm introducing the concept
Yes.
to her.
Yeah.
Because she said, "Oh, I remember when I came out from your tummy." I'm like, "Where'd you get that memory from?" And like, so that's when, okay, I think I have to explain. I would explain to her and tell her, and then she would brush it off. So I'm like, okay,
Maybe she's
not
not
ready.
ready
At the time. And then that moment when we were both, and then I remember she said that. She said, "I remember, Mom, right? When I came out from your tummy." And I said, "Remember." And then I told her again. So I think that was that moment that she was ready to receive a little bit more. Because she was at first just really, she would change the topic. Like that drastic. Every time I'd bring it up before, that. And then she'd be, oh, and then she'd take something that's totally out of topic. So I'm like, okay, I'll just be ready when you're ready, and then I'll drop hints. So it was really more like that for me. I think more just dropping the seeds and then seeing how much she can, and then watching her reaction. And then, okay, she's not ready or she doesn't really get it yet. But then now we heard, so initially also we thought that she didn't really get the concept of me not being her birth mom. And then what helped was me showing her pictures and the video when she came back. And I did not know that the effect on her was, wow, you really wanted me to come back, right? And like, yeah, we cried so much. Like, we wanted you to just be back with us. And that's what stuck with her. That's what she keeps bringing up every time we talk about how she came into the family. So not so much about her as a newborn, even if we showed her the photos. And then, we would talk about how her story when we initially got her. But she wouldn't talk so much about that. She would discuss more about how, tell me again, Mom, what were you praying for? You were really sad, right? Because you missed it. And she says, you missed me. And you really wanted me to be back. And I'm like, yeah. And then in the video, and she would narrate the video. And I let her, because I want to see how it's registering to her. So I let her. And then what happened? And then what? Yeah. And then remember? And then I would let her fill in the blanks. So she's there now. Like, she knows that she has a birth mom. She knows that. So I try to, it's again a fine line of not having to make up a story that I don't really fully know about. At the same time, I also want to not dishonor her memory of whatever memory she might have of her mom. Like, at the same time, I want as much as possible for it not to be hard for her to honor her birth mom.
Right, correct.
So there's that.
Right.
And so the story we tell her is, I think I put myself through the lens of birth, like a mom. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure your mom loves you and would want to take care of you as much as she could have, but she can't. So it's as simple as that for now, because that's all I know. I cannot speak for your mom.
Sorry.
Yes.
I just have this thought in mind
go
that I
ahead.
can't keep. That's so important. I love what you said, because and talking about attachment and building that relationship with your child is very important. So I can picture Charlie, when Karen Purvis said that it was in a relationship that our children were broken, and it's in a nurturing and healthy relationship that they will be healed. So here's Charlie, and here's Charlie with our family now, and we have a strong bond with him and a strong relationship with him. Well, this is still broken. I'm hoping and praying because he knows his biological family. He knows his mom and his biological dad, and there were times that they would try to reach out to him, but he's not yet ready to reciprocate that, right? Because of the bad experiences when he did welcome that connection. So, but I'm hoping, even if this is broken, he always has this to turn to. And when the right time comes that this is mended and healed, then he has both. And he can be healed. But even if, let's say this doesn't happen, he always has this.
I just, I have to say it. No, I think
I love it.
it's just like, no, like one of the things we always tell, two things. I have to say two things. I know, we got to land the plane, but one is we always tell families, don't relinquish the reins of the story that your children know about their adoption, because we have the opportunity to craft that narrative. Sorry, maybe my producer brain goes on and I'm like, we can shape that story. Let's not let the world define or others or friends or their barkada or, whoever define that narrative for them. As parents, we have to be proactive because I see that with Chloe. Chloe goes back to the day she came home. So we don't have a birth story, but she remembers the day and she goes, so she narrates it as well. And it's her story because that's the story she knows, because that's the story we told her. And so we got to define that. And it's truth. You were celebrated. So she thinks about the night that she came home and all, like our extended family all came. All of my grandparents were there. Her grandparents were there and my uncles and aunts. And I said, that night I just wanted to hold you and everybody kept passing you around and I couldn't hold you. I had to wait till everybody went home and they didn't want to go home because everybody wanted to. And so that's her story. And I see how much it shapes, the security that she has in our family when she has that story. And so, our encouragement to families is always, you have the chance to craft that story. So, make sure that, you create experiences and memories for them where they're celebrated. So as they build attachment with you, you get to go back to those anchors and those memories that ground them and that remind them that they are loved, despite, what happened before that. But I also was just reminded of, I don't know what resource this was, what conference I was at, but that this idea of a birth mom, and, they talk about the adoption triad. So there's the adoptee in the middle, there's a biological mom and a birth mom. And it's usually the mother because sometimes, the dad isn't in the picture, especially with the biological family, right? So they might not have had any attachment to the biological dad because there was no in utero experience. But that, whoever said that attachment was just like that, the child only had the capacity to attach to one, or that the role of the mother was just one. So it's just us as adoptive moms who sometimes feel like our role is threatened, that like, if I start to introduce this idea of a birth mom, then do they start to love me less? Like, is it one tank that fuels both? And it's like a completely separate tank, or it's like a completely separate role, that it's not that you take away from your position as their mom. It's like a completely separate thing. I don't know if I'm articulating this clearly. We think it is, or we sometimes feel like that is, I guess, because sometimes adoptive moms feel threatened, or, start to get nervous around this idea or the concept of a birth mom. I realize this is a whole different podcast topic. Sorry. Maybe it's a teaser for another one. But when you were talking about wanting them to honor their birth mom, I think it's intimidating sometimes for adoptive families. They don't know how to talk about that. You've had to do that because out of necessity, and unfortunately, have to navigate the complexity of that, or fortunately, of that relationship. But but we don't ever have to feel threatened because I think we have such a unique position. And, we did a series early in, the life of generations. So maybe our second or third year, what makes a real mom? Because I am your real mom. I'm the mother that nurtures. I'm the mom that pours in. I'm the mom that, you can trust and that is a safe person in your life, that constant. And so, I just think it just brings us back to how this journey is so unique for us.
I just want to add, I know you're closing, but I just want to add because it's part of it. But with Charlie and with the mom once in a while trying to reach out to him, I always tell him, personally, like you said, I'm not threatened by it because my relationship with him is really strong and founded, And I always keep that door open. I always anak or son, whenever you're ready in your own time, if you want to reciprocate that effort your biological mom is doing, I'm okay with it. But that's like I said, it's his own journey in his own time, but the door is open for him.
And it's very important that we keep that in mind. We build from that posture of not being threatened and not seeing it as either me or her. Yeah. Because when the time comes, we wouldn't want them to have to choose. Because and I also saw this from another developmental psychologist, and he was talking about how it's healthy for them to not feel like they have to choose. Like for me to be able to attach with one mom, I have to let go of this attachment from another mom. Like they have to eventually learn I can actually have healthy attachments.
Yes.
Both ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's very healthy. And we would want that for them. And I think, I don't know, I'll help you land. But the question of how do we, what story do we tell our kids? How do we narrate it to them? And what's the narrative that we want them to embrace? I think we will always go back to what identity do we want them to embrace? What story, the story that we tell them will eventually be their script. So more than, this is not just about their birth story. It's really the identity. We're telling them this is who you are. This is your identity. So it goes beyond birth mom. It goes beyond adoptive parent, foster parent. It goes back to your identity in Christ, how God made you. And I think there's no divide there. It really ties up to that. We go back to helping them as we share their birth story. The end goal is still for them to understand better who they are in Christ. It's for them to understand better God's plans and purposes for their lives. And so there.
I love that. This is so good. We could talk all day. So, thanks for sharing your thoughts. I think that this is such an important conversation. And, we promise to have more of these conversations. Because, it's encouraging me, just being able to share the experiences with you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for joining us. This is another episode of the Family is the Answer podcast in partnership with Our Parenthood. If you want to know more about the work that we do at Generations Home, you can visit generationshome.org. Also, big thank you to Sage Studios for partnering with us, that we get to record in this beautiful podcast studio. Thanks to them. And do reach out to us if you want to get connected to the community of moms, of adoptive and foster parents that we have, or adoptees that we have. Or if you're on this journey of wanting to learn more about adoption and foster care and wanting to explore that journey for you and your family, please reach out to us. But that's it for today. We hope to see you guys in our next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was the Family is the Answer podcast by Generations Home, powered by Podcast Network Asia. Learn more about ending the orphan crisis and fueling our work through our website, generationshome.org. You can also find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave us a rating so more people can find it too. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you at our next episode.